Harmony Station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. It was home to thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds. Humans and many others lived together on this massive station. They worked together. They traded together. Sometimes they argued, but mostly they got along. Lieutenant had been living on Harmony Station for 3 years now. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. Her job was simple. She managed the cargo that came and went from the station. Every day, ships arrived with supplies. Every day, she checked the lists and made sure everything went to the right place. It was boring work, but liked boring. Boring meant safe. Boring meant no problems. Today was supposed to be another boring day. The cargo ship from Earth arrived at exactly 900 hours. It was a medium-sized vessel called the Blue Sparrow. Watched it dock through the observation window of her office. The ship looked tired. Its paint was chipped. Its engines made a wheezing sound that she could hear even through the thick station walls. She grabbed her and walked down to the cargo bay. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The hallways were busy this morning. A group of traders walked past her, their long blue robes flowing behind them. Two human engineers argued about something technical near a broken light panel. A cleaning robot bumped into her leg and beeped an apology before rolling away. The cargo bay was huge. It could hold 100 shipping containers at once. Right now, it held the supplies from the Blue Sparrow. Workers moved around like ants, pushing crates and scanning labels. Chief Engineer was already there, waiting for her. He was a tall man with messy hair and dark circles under his eyes, never seemed to sleep. He was always working on something, always fixing something, always worried about something breaking. "Morning," he said, not looking up from his own. "Morning," replied. "What did we get today?" "The usual medical supplies, food rations, some personal packages for the crew." He scrolled through the list. "Oh, and about 20 rolls of something called bubble wrap." "Bubble wrap?" "Yeah, it is some kind of protective material. Humans use it to wrap fragile things so they do not break during transport." Shrugged. "Doctor ordered it for the medical lab. She has some delicate equipment coming next month." Nodded. She remembered Doctor. The woman was very careful about her equipment. She treated her medical machines like they were her children. "Where should we store it?" asked. Thought for a moment. "Storage Bay 7 has space. Put it there for now." "Got it." Typed the instructions into her. The cargo drones received the order and began moving the large rolls of bubble wrap towards Storage Bay 7. She watched them go, not thinking much about it. It was just packaging material. What could possibly go wrong? She did not know that Storage Bay 7 shared a wall with the station's center. She did not know that there was a ventilation shaft connecting the two areas. And she definitely did not know that the Cubs had discovered how to open ventilation grates 3 weeks ago. The center on Harmony Station was officially called the Youth Development Zone. Everyone just called it the. It was a large, colorful room filled with toys, soft mats, and educational games. Every morning, parents from different species dropped off their children before going to work. Today there were 15 cubs in the. 7 were human children. 3 were younglings with their pale blue skin and big curious eyes. 2 were larvae, which looked like large caterpillars with tiny arms. And 3 were cubs. They were a feline species. They had soft fur, pointed ears, and retractable claws. Adult were graceful hunters, respected throughout the galaxy for their speed and intelligence. But cubs were different. They were small, fluffy, and absolutely full of chaos. Was the oldest of the 3 cubs. She was 4 cycles old, which was young even by standards. Her fur was orange with white patches, and her eyes were bright gold. She was smart. Too smart, according to the workers. In the past month alone, she had escaped from the 17 times. She had a cleaning robot to follow her around and bring her snacks. She had convinced the larvae that she was their queen and they should obey her commands. The workers had learned to watch very carefully. But today they were distracted. One of the human children had gotten sick. Another had started crying because someone took his toy. A youngling was asking endless questions about why stars were hot. The workers were busy. They were tired. They did not notice when ears perked up at a strange sound. It came from the ventilation shaft in the corner of the room. A soft rustling, then a bump, then silence. Whiskers twitched. Her eyes locked onto the grate covering the shaft. She knew that grate. She had opened it before. She had explored the dark tunnels behind it many times. Slowly, carefully, she crawled toward the corner. The other two cubs, a brother and sister, named and noticed her moving. They followed without question. When went somewhere, interesting things always happened. Reached the grate. She pressed her tiny paws against it and pushed. The grate popped open easily. She had loosened the screws weeks ago. Beyond the grate was darkness, but could see in the dark. All could. She crawled into the shaft, her soft paws making no sound on the metal, and followed close behind. The shaft was narrow but not tight, moved forward following her nose. She could smell something new, something strange, something that had not been here before. After a few minutes of crawling, she reached another grate. This one looked into a storage room. It was full of boxes and containers, but in the middle of the floor sat something wonderful, something amazing, something that made its heart beat faster. It was a large roll of clear material filled with tiny bubbles. It had fallen from a stack of similar rolls. It lay on the floor like a gift from the universe. Pushed open the second grate and dropped silently into the room, and followed. The three cubs approached the strange object slowly, their tails swishing back and forth. Reached out one paw and touched the bubble wrap. Nothing happened. She pressed harder. Pop! The sound was small but clear, jumped back startled. Then her eyes went wide. What was that? What made that sound? She pressed another bubble. Pop! And another. Pop, pop. A feeling of pure joy spread through her small body. This was the best thing she had ever found. This was better than the snack robot. This was better than escaping through the vents. This was better than being queen of the larvae. Grabbed the roll with both paws and pulled. More bubble wrap unrolled onto the floor. She pressed her whole body against it. Pop, 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 pop. And needed no invitation. They pounced on the bubble wrap like it was prey. The storage room filled with the sound of popping bubbles and happy cub squeaks. But they wanted more. One roll was not enough. They needed all of it. Looked up at the stack of bubble wrap rolls. Her golden eyes gleamed with determination. She began to climb. 20 rolls of bubble wrap. 15 cubs in the one ventilation shaft connecting everything together. Was finishing her paperwork in her office when she heard the first distant pops. She looked up, confused. What was that sound? It almost sounded like tiny explosions. She shrugged and went back to her work. Probably nothing important. She was very, very wrong. Had found heaven. She did not know what heaven was, but if anyone had explained it to her, she would have said it was a room full of bubble wrap. The three cubs worked together like a tiny army, climbed the stack of bubble wrap rolls, and waited below with open paws. One by one, pushed the rolls off the stack. They fell to the floor with soft thuds. The cubs unrolled them eagerly, spreading the precious material across the storage room floor. Pop, 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 pop. The sound was beautiful. It was the best sound had ever heard. Each pop sent a little shiver of happiness through her fur. She could not stop. She did not want to stop. But there was a problem. The storage room was too small. There was too much bubble wrap and not enough space. Looked at the ventilation shaft. Then she looked at the bubble wrap. Then she looked back at the shaft. An idea formed in her clever little mind. Grabbed one end of a long sheet of bubble wrap. She dragged it toward the ventilation opening. Understood immediately. He grabbed the other end. Together, they pulled the bubble wrap into the shaft. It took many trips, back and forth, back and forth. Each time they brought more bubble wrap through the ventilation tunnel. The other end of the tunnel led directly to there were more cubs waiting. The first sheet of bubble wrap emerged from the vent like a strange plastic snake. It flopped onto the soft play mat of the center. A human child named was the first to notice. He was 5 years old with round cheeks and curious eyes. He had been playing with building blocks, but the strange new thing was much more interesting. He walked over and poked the bubble wrap with one finger. Pop! His eyes went wide. He poked it again. Pop, pop! A huge smile spread across his face. He grabbed the bubble wrap with both hands and squeezed. Pop, 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 pop. The other children heard the sound. They stopped what they were doing. They turned toward. They saw his happy face. They saw the strange, clear material in his hands. They wanted to try. Within seconds, every child in there was rushing toward the bubble wrap. The workers finally noticed something was wrong. Supervisor looked up from helping a crying toddler. She saw children running. She saw something shiny on the floor. She heard a sound like tiny firecrackers going off. "What is happening?" she called out. No one answered. The children were too busy. More bubble wrap was coming through the vent and had returned to the storage room for another load. They were bringing everything they could carry. The floor was disappearing under a sea of plastic bubbles. The younglings were delicate creatures. They usually played quiet games and read books, but even they could not resist the bubble wrap. Their long blue fingers pressed bubble after bubble. Their normally calm faces showed pure delight. The larvae were usually slow and sleepy. They spent most of their time eating leaves and napping, but the vibrations from the popping bubbles excited them. They wiggled across the bubble wrap, their tiny bodies making dozens of pops with every movement. And the human children were going absolutely wild. They jumped on the bubble wrap. They rolled in it. They wrapped themselves up like presents. They threw sheets of it into the air. Pop, 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 pop. The sound was endless. It echoed off the walls. It traveled through the floor. It shook through the ventilation system and spread to other parts of the station. Supervisor tried to restore order. She clapped her hands. She called for attention. She threatened to take away snack time. Nothing worked. The children were lost in bubble wrap madness. "Where is this coming from?" shouted to her assistant, a young man named. Was standing near the vent, looking confused. "It is coming from there," he said, pointing at the opening. "Someone is pushing it through." As if to prove his point, another roll of bubble wrap emerged from the vent. It was followed by a small orange paw. Stuck her head out and looked around at the chaos she had created. Her golden eyes sparkled with pride. Groaned, "Of course it is you." Meowed happily and disappeared back into the vent for more supplies. The noise grew louder. The popping never stopped. Children laughed and screamed with joy. They had become a war zone of plastic and happiness. On the other side of the station, security officer was having a quiet morning. She sat at her desk in the security office, drinking coffee and watching the monitors. Everything looked normal. Everything was peaceful. Then she heard it. At first she thought it was static on one of the monitors, a crackling, popping sound, but it grew louder and louder, and it seemed to be coming from multiple screens at once. Frowned. She put down her coffee and leaned closer to the monitors. The sound was definitely coming from the speakers connected to the station's internal microphones. Pop, 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 pop. It sounded like gunfire, small caliber, rapid fire, coming from Sector 7. His heart started beating faster. Sector 7 was the residential area. Families lived there. Children played there. She pulled up the audio feed from Sector 7. The sound hit her like a wave. Pop, 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 pop. "What in the stars?" she whispered. She tried to pull up the video feed from the screen showed chaos. Small bodies moving everywhere, something white and shiny covering the floor, children running and jumping and falling. The audio was terrifying, explosions mixed with screams. High-pitched voices crying out. It sounded like an attack. It looked like an attack. Straining took over. Her hand moved toward the alarm button. Her mind raced through the possibilities. A new weapon, a terrorist attack, some kind of biological agent that made people go crazy. She needed to warn the station. She needed to protect the children. She needed to act now. But first, she needed to confirm. She zoomed in on the video feed, trying to see what was actually happening. The image was blurry. The movement was too fast. She could not tell what the shiny material was. She could not understand why the children were screaming. One of the small figures looked directly at the camera. It was a cub wrapped in the strange material like a cocoon. Its mouth was open. It was screaming. Made her decision. Her hand slammed down on the alarm button. Sirens exploded throughout the station. Red lights began flashing in every corridor. Emergency bulkheads started to close. Automated announcements blared from every speaker. Attention all personnel. Code Omega. Possible hostile incursion. Station is now under quarantine lockdown. This is not a drill. Throughout Harmony Station, thousands of beings stopped what they were doing. They heard the alarm. They felt the fear. In the command center, Commander dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he did not notice. He was already running toward the door. In the cargo bay, heard the alarm and felt her stomach drop. Something was very wrong. Something terrible had happened. In the trading center, alien merchants began to panic. Traders screamed. Warriors reached for weapons. Merchants secreted defensive slime onto the floor. And in the children kept popping bubble wrap. They did not understand what the sirens meant. They did not know that the whole station was going into lockdown because of them. They only knew that the bubble wrap made a wonderful sound, and they never wanted it to stop. Emerged from the ventilation shaft one more time. She carried the last roll of bubble wrap in her tiny paws. She looked around at the beautiful chaos. She purred with satisfaction. This was her greatest adventure yet. She did not know that armed Marines were now running through the station toward her location. She did not know that the entire galaxy would soon hear about what happened today. She did not know that she was about to become the most famous cub in the history of relations. She only knew that she had found something wonderful, and she had shared it with her friends. Pop, pop, pop. The countdown to disaster had begun. Commander had been having the most boring morning of his entire career. He sat in a conference room with representatives from 6 different species. They were discussing the station budget. They had been discussing the station budget for 3 hours. Someone was talking about cleaning supply costs. Was trying very hard not to fall asleep. He was a serious man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the Earth Coalition Navy for 20 years before taking this posting. He had seen battles. He had commanded warships. He had faced pirates and rebels and angry alien diplomats. Nothing had prepared him for budget meetings. The ambassador was explaining why his people needed more water purifiers when the alarms went off. The sound cut through the room like a knife. Red lights flashed. The automated voice boomed from the speakers. Attention all personnel. Code Omega. Possible hostile incursion. Station is now under quarantine lockdown. This is not a drill. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then everything happened at once. The ambassador fainted. His long blue body crumpled to the floor like a falling curtain. His assistant caught him just before his head hit the table. The delegate, a warrior named Captain Talon, jumped to her feet. Her claws extended. Her ears flattened against her head. She looked ready to fight anything that came through the door. The representative made a horrible gurgling sound and began secreting thick purple slime. This was a defensive reaction for their species. Unfortunately, It also made the floor very slippery. A human trade official tried to run for the door. He stepped in the slime and fell hard on his back. He slid across the room and crashed into a potted plant. Commander stood up slowly. His heart was racing, but his face was calm. This was what he was trained for. This was why he had been chosen to lead Harmony Station. "Everyone stay calm," he said in a firm voice. "I will find out what is happening." He pulled out his communicator and contacted the security office. "Officer, this is Commander, report." His voice came through, shaky and fast. "Sir, we have detected some kind of attack in Sector 7. The center. There are continuous explosions. The children are screaming. I cannot identify the weapon, but it sounds like rapid-fire projectiles." Felt his blood turn cold. The children from a dozen different species. If something happened to them, it could start an interstellar war. "I am on my way," he said. "Send all available security teams to Sector 7. Full combat readiness." "Already done, sir. Marines are moving to intercept." Ended the call and headed for the door. Behind him, the conference room was still in chaos. The ambassador was being fanned by his assistant. The captain was demanding to know if her cubs were safe. There was still making slime. The hallways were madness. Emergency bulkheads were closing. People were running in every direction. Some were trying to get to safety. Others were trying to find their families. A few were just running in circles, screaming. Pushed through the crowd. His commander's uniform cleared a path. People saw him and moved aside. They looked at him with fear and hope. They wanted him to fix this. They wanted him to save them. He hoped he could. On the other side of the station, Lieutenant was trapped in the cargo bay. The emergency bulkheads had sealed all the exits. She was stuck with 100 cargo containers and about 30 very confused workers. "What is happening?" one of the workers asked her. "I do not know," admitted, "but it is code Omega. That means possible invasion." The workers looked at each other with wide eyes. Some of them started to panic. Others tried to find weapons among the cargo. His communicator buzzed. It was her friend from the medical bay, a nurse named. "Are you safe?" asked. "I am stuck in the cargo bay. What is going on out there?" "Nobody knows. They are saying something attacked the children might be hurt." Felt sick. She thought about the bubble wrap she had sent to Storage Bay 7. Storage Bay 7 was right next to the. Could there be a connection? No, that was ridiculous. It was just packaging material. How could bubble wrap cause a code Omega? She pushed the thought away and focused on keeping her workers calm. Meanwhile, Sargent was leading her Marine squad towards Sector 7. She was a small woman, but she moved like a predator. Her armor was heavy, but she ran like it weighed nothing. Behind her, 6 Marines followed in perfect formation. They had all been trained for situations like this. Hostile aliens, terrorist attacks, unknown threats, they knew what to do. But as they got closer they started to feel confused. The sounds coming from ahead were strange. Yes, there were explosions. Yes, there were screams. But something was wrong. The screams did not sound like fear. They sounded like excitement. "Hold," ordered. Her squad stopped instantly. She listened carefully. Pop, 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 laugh, squeal, pop, pop, pop. Those were not the sounds of a battle. Those were the sounds of playing. But she could not take chances. If there was even a small possibility that children were in danger, she had to act. "Stack up," she commanded. "Breach on my mark." Her squad moved to the door. 2 Marines took positions on each side. One prepared to override the lock, stood in the center, her weapon raised. Inside, she could hear chaos, things breaking, high-pitched voices, endless popping sounds. 3 counted, 2, 1, go. The door slid open. Charged through, weapon ready, eyes scanning for threats. Something hit her in the face. It was a cub, wrapped completely in clear plastic material. The cub was spinning through the air, launched by some kind of catapult made from chairs and elastic bands. It sailed past his helmet, screaming with pure joy. HFY. The cub landed on a pile of soft mats and immediately started laughing. Froze, her brain tried to process what she was seeing. It looked like a bomb had hit it, but not a real bomb. A bomb made of happiness and plastic. Every surface was covered in bubble wrap. Children of every species were rolling, jumping, popping, and screaming with delight. A human boy ran past her, dragging a long sheet of bubble wrap behind him like a cape. Two younglings were having a competition to see who could pop the most bubbles with their feet. The larvae had formed a line and were wiggling across a bubble-wrap carpet, making hundreds of pops with their soft bodies. And in the middle of it all, standing on top of a mountain of bubble wrap like a tiny queen, was an orange cub with golden eyes. The cub saw in the armed Marines. She did not look scared, she looked proud. "Pop, pop," the cub announced, pointing at the bubble wrap around her. Slowly lowered her weapon. Her mind was empty. She had trained for many things. She had not trained for this. Behind her, one of the Marines spoke softly. "Sergeant, what are your orders?" Opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I have no idea," she admitted. Commander arrived 30 seconds later. He pushed through the Marine squad and stepped into the... He saw the bubble wrap. He saw the happy children. He saw the complete absence of any actual threat. For a long moment, he just stood there. Then he pulled out his communicator. "Officer," he said slowly, "stand down from Code Omega." "Sir, but the explosions." "There are no explosions. There is only bubble wrap." "Bubble wrap." "Yes, bubble wrap. The children found bubble wrap. That is the attack, bubble wrap." There was a long silence on the other end. "Sir, I do not understand." Commander looked at the chaos around him. A cub was trying to put bubble wrap on his boot. A human child was offering him a piece of the stuff like it was treasure. "Neither do I," he said. "But please stand down, and someone find out where this bubble wrap came from." He ended the call. The sirens stopped. The red lights turned off. Throughout the station, people slowly began to realize that the emergency was over. And in the popping continued. Pop, 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 pop. The most expensive false alarm in station history had just ended, but the consequences were only beginning. The cleanup took 6 hours. Bubble wrap had spread everywhere. It was in the ventilation shafts. It had somehow gotten into 3 other sections of the station. Nobody knew how. The cubs refused to explain. Commander stood in his office, rubbing his tired eyes. Outside his window, workers were still pulling bubble wrap out of air ducts. A cleaning robot had gotten tangled in the stuff and was spinning in circles, beeping sadly. Lieutenant stood in front of his desk. She looked nervous. She was holding a with the cargo manifest from that morning. "So," said slowly, "let me understand this correctly." "Yes, sir." "The entire station went into quarantine lockdown." "Yes, sir." "We scrambled 4 Marine squads." "Yes, sir." "We caused 3 diplomatic incidents." "The ambassador is still unconscious, sir." "Because of packaging material." "Swallowed hard." "Yes, sir. Bubble wrap. Humans use it to protect fragile items during shipping. It has small air pockets that make a popping sound when pressed. And humans enjoy this." "It is oddly satisfying, sir. Many humans find it relaxing." Stared at her for a long moment. "Relaxing." "Yes, sir." "The sound that made officer think we were under attack. The sound that caused station-wide panic. That sound is relaxing to humans." Did not know what to say. She just nodded. The door opened. Chief Engineer walked in, looking exhausted. His uniform was covered in bits of bubble wrap. He had been leading the cleanup teams for hours. "Commander," he said, "we have a problem." "Of course we do." The Cubs want more. Blinked, excuse me. The Cubs, they have formed some kind of group. They are calling themselves the Pop Pop Coalition. Handed over they sent us a message. Looked at the screen. The message was written in crayon on what appeared to be a piece of bubble wrap that had been flattened and scanned. It read, "We want more poppy sheets or we will escape again. The vents are ours. You cannot stop us. SIGNED, Queen MIRU and the Pop Pop Coalition." Below the words was a drawing of a small cat-like creature wearing a crown. It was surrounded by smaller creatures of different shapes and sizes. They were all smiling. Set down he took a deep breath. He had commanded warships. He had negotiated with hostile aliens. He had survived budget meetings, but this was something new. "Who is Queen?" he asked. "She is the oldest cub in the," explained. "She is 4 cycles old. She is the one who found the bubble wrap and brought it through the ventilation system. A 4-year-old started all of this. She is very clever, sir. The workers say she has escaped 17 times. She wants a cleaning robot to bring her snacks." Looked out the window. The cleaning robot was still spinning in circles outside, wrapped in bubble wrap. He wondered if that was the same robot. "What do the parents say?" he asked. "They are proud, sir. In culture, clever cubs are celebrated. Parents have been telling everyone on the station about how their daughter caused a code Omega lockdown. They are proud of this. Very proud, sir. They want to give her extra treats." Sat down heavily in his chair. His head hurt. "What about the other species, the?" Cleared his throat. "That is actually interesting, sir. The younglings have requested more bubble wrap for educational purposes. They say the popping action teaches them about air pressure. And the larvae loved it. The vibrations from the popping are similar to sounds their species uses for communication. They were laughing the entire time. Their parents have never seen them so happy." Did not know that larvae could laugh. He had always thought they just wiggled and ate leaves. So everyone enjoyed it. "Everyone except the adults who had to clean it up, sir." There was a knock on the door. Officer entered looking embarrassed. Her face was red. She had been crying. "Commander," she said quietly, "I wanted to apologize. I triggered the code Omega. I caused all of this. I thought we were under attack, but it was just children playing. I made a terrible mistake." Looked at her carefully. Was young. She had only been a security officer for 2 years. She was good at her job. She had never made a mistake this big before. "Officer," he said, "what did you see on the monitors?" Small figures running and screaming. Rapid sounds like gunfire, smoke or dust in the air. It looked like a battle, sir. "And what did you hear?" "Explosions, thousands of them, and screaming, so much screaming." Nodded slowly. "If I had been in your position, I would have done the same thing." Looked up surprised. "Sir, you saw what looked like an attack on children. You did not wait. You did not hesitate. You protected them. That is exactly what you were trained to do." "But it was a mistake." "It was bubble wrap," said firmly. "No one on the station has ever seen bubble wrap. No one knows what it sounds like. How could you have known? How could anyone have known?" Wiped her eyes. "Thank you, sir." "Do not thank me yet. You will be writing the official report on this incident, every detail. I expect it on my desk tomorrow." "Yes, sir." After left turned back to end. "We need to contain this," he said. "The news of what happened will spread. Other stations will hear. The Galactic Council will hear. We need to have a story ready." "What kind of story?" asked. "The truth, but presented carefully. This was not a security failure. This was a cultural exchange incident. Humans brought something from their world. Alien children discovered it and enjoyed it. There was a misunderstanding. No one was hurt." "That is what happened," agreed. "Yes, but we need to make sure everyone sees it that way. The last thing we need is the Galactic Council thinking human products are dangerous weapons. Thought about this? Sir, what if we present it as a positive thing? The bubble wrap made all the children happy. Every species enjoyed it. Maybe this is actually good for relations between worlds. Considered this. It was a clever idea. Turn a disaster into a success. Make bubble wrap into a symbol of unity instead of confusion. Contact the Earth Coalition Cultural Office, he ordered. Tell them what happened. Ask them to prepare information about bubble wrap and its uses. Maybe they can send some educational materials. Yes, sir. And find out where the remaining bubble wrap is. Make sure it is secured. We cannot have another incident. About that, sir, said carefully. The Cubs took most of it. They hid it somewhere. We cannot find it. They hid it. Yes, the ventilation system is very complex. They could have put it anywhere. Closed his eyes. Somewhere on his station, a 4-year-old cub was sitting on a pile of bubble wrap, planning her next move. He was in trouble, he knew it. The whole station was in trouble. But somehow, looking at the crayon drawing of Queen and her Pop-Pop coalition, he could not help but smile just a little bit. We will deal with this tomorrow, he said. Everyone go home and rest. I have a feeling things are going to get very interesting very soon. He was right, but he had no idea just how interesting things would become. 3 months had passed since the bubble wrap incident. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Lieutenant sat in her new office, looking at her new title on the door, Cultural Exchange Coordinator. It was a position that had not existed before the incident. Now it was one of the most important jobs on Harmony Station. Her desk was covered in reports. Orders for bubble wrap were coming in from every corner of the galaxy. The numbers were insane. 10,000 rolls for the 20,000 for the colonies, 50,000 for the breeding grounds. The demand never stopped. She remembered how it had all begun. After the incident, the Galactic Council had demanded an explanation. Commander had traveled to the council chambers to defend the station. Everyone expected punishment. Everyone expected anger. Instead, something strange happened. The High Council asked for a demonstration, had brought a small sheet of bubble wrap, thinking it would help explain. He gave it to the lead council member, an ancient named Elder Blue Sky. Elder Blue Sky pressed one bubble, pop. His huge eyes went wide. He pressed another, pop, pop, pop. For the first time in 300 years, Elder Blue Sky smiled. The meeting had been suspended for 2 hours while every council member took turns popping bubbles. By the end, they were not discussing punishment. They were discussing trade agreements. Within weeks, bubble wrap had become the most valuable human export in the galaxy. Scientists from every species studied it. They discovered amazing things. They found that popping bubbles helped calm their minds during meditation. They used it to train their cubs, teaching them patience and fine motor control. They discovered that the vibrations matched frequencies in their language that meant joy and celebration. A doctor published a paper claiming that bubble wrap reduced stress hormones in 12 different species. Pop-Pop therapy centers opened on stations throughout the coalition. Beings who had never smiled before were now laughing while popping bubbles. And it was all because of a 4-year-old cub named. Had become famous. News channels across the galaxy told her story. The clever cub who discovered bubble wrap. The queen of the Pop-Pop coalition. The tiny hero who accidentally brought joy to millions. Her parents were overwhelmed with gifts and interview requests. Herself did not seem to care about the fame. She only cared about one thing. She still had her bubble wrap. The hidden stash that the adults could never find was still somewhere in the ventilation system. Visited it every day. She had shared some with her coalition members, but she kept most of it for herself. A true queen needed her treasures. Visited the sometimes. She liked to watch the cubs play. They were calmer now, partly because they had regular access to bubble wrap as part of their daily activities. But she still escaped through the vents. She still cleaning robots. She still convinced other cubs to follow her on adventures. Some things never changed. Chief Engineer walked into his office. He looked better than he had 3 months ago. The dark circles under his eyes were gone. He was almost smiling. Another shipment arrived, he said. Biggest one yet, 300 rolls. Good, we will need them. The ambassador is visiting next week. She wants to see the Pop Therapy Center personally. Nodded, he looked like he wanted to say something else. What is it? Asked. I just think it is funny, he said. Humans have been in space for 200 years. We have shared technology. We have shared medicine. We have shared art and music and literature. But the thing that finally united the galaxy was packaging material. Laughed. It is very human, is it not? We never know which of our inventions will be important. We just make things and share them and hope for the best. The captain told me something yesterday, continued. She said that before bubble wrap her people thought humans were boring. No claws, no fangs, no special abilities, just soft little creatures who talk too much. And now she says humans are the most interesting species she has ever met. She said any species that invents something so simple and so wonderful must have beautiful souls. Felt warmth spread through her chest. That was one of the nicest things anyone had ever said about humans. I should get back to work, said. There is a ventilation shaft on deck 7 that keeps making popping sounds. I think the cubs hid more bubble wrap in there. Good luck finding it. I have given up trying. At this point, I just let them have their fun. After left, looked out her window at the stars. Harmony Station floated peacefully in the darkness. Ships came and went, carrying cargo and passengers and dreams. And bubble wrap, so much bubble wrap. She thought about what the future might hold. Would bubble wrap remain popular? Would something else come along? Would humans accidentally cause another galaxy-wide panic with some other strange invention? Probably. That seemed to be how humans worked. They stumbled through the universe, causing chaos and confusion, and somehow things turned out okay in the end. On the observation deck of the station, Commander stood alone. He was looking at a small sheet of bubble wrap in his hands. He had kept it since the council meeting, a reminder of the strangest day of his career. He pressed one bubble, pop. He smiled. It was oddly satisfying. He understood now why everyone loved it so much. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth Command. Commander, congratulations on your handling of the bubble wrap situation. Your cultural exchange program has improved human-alien relations by 340% according to our analysts. Well done. Also, we are sending a new shipment next month. Please try to keep the cubs away from it this time. Laughed, keep the cubs away from it, that was impossible. The ventilation system belonged to the Pop Coalition now. Everyone knew it. The afternoon play session was ending. Children of every species were settling down for nap time. The workers were tired but happy. It had been a good day. In the corner, lying on a soft mat she was curled up like a little orange ball, her tail wrapped around her nose. In her small paws, she clutched a piece of bubble wrap. She had fallen asleep while popping it. One of the workers, supervisor, looked at the sleeping cub and shook her head. This tiny creature had changed the galaxy. She had started a trade revolution by accident. She had united species that had been strangers for centuries. And she was only 4 years old. Gently covered with a blanket, the cub purred softly in her sleep. Outside the window, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, millions of beings were discovering bubble wrap for the first time. They were pressing bubbles and hearing pops and feeling joy. All because of a curious cub and a shipment of packaging material. Humanity had done it again. They had stumbled into something ridiculous, caused mass confusion, and somehow made the galaxy a better place. It was what humans did best. And somewhere in the ventilation system of Harmony Station, hidden away from adult eyes, the secret stash of the Pop Pop Coalition waited for another day. Pop, pop, pop. The end.